I'm joined now by Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Democrat from California, ranking member of the House Financial Services Committee, who spoke at the tax march in Washington on Saturday. And Congresswoman, it's a little unclear what the White House is saying, but basically they're saying the audit still pertains, and so the same reasoning applies. What's your response?
Well, of course, nobody believes that. This president is hiding something. That's what we believe. We want to know more about him. What does he own? What kind of debt does he have? How much debt has he been carrying over for how many years? Many of us believe that he pays no taxes and maybe haven't paid any for 10 or 12 years. And so I don't know who he thinks he's fooling or whether or not he just totally disrespects all Americans, and particularly those who voted for him, by continuing to tell this lie about them being under audit and he can't show them. Americans all over this country, many are struggling to pay their taxes. Middle-income people, working people, and many have to pay taxes that they can't afford. And here we are. They are struggling to pay their taxes, and this president is basically laughing at us because, remember, during the campaign, he said, I pay no taxes, and I believe that, and many people believe that. And it's unfortunate. He could show his taxes if he wants to show his taxes. He is hiding a lot from the American people.
Is there any way, I should note that the one return we have from, I think, 2005 showed that he did, in that year at least, pay taxes, and there was one sheet the New York Times got from earlier which had imagined it was possible he'd taken a massive deduction to avoid for many years. But is it possible for Democrats like yourself or Republicans even to force his hand in any way? I mean, I guess you can try some sort of statutory move, but Republicans are just going to stonewall, aren't they?
Yes, that's true, and that is being discussed in our Ways and Means Committee. They're talking about ways that they possibly can do that. I don't know where those discussions are now, and I think members of Congress would rather not do it, but he's forcing our hand by making it sound as if we're stupid instead of he's lying.
Well, it also strikes me that there's I mean, do you agree that there's a tangible difference between him as candidate and him as president? Because, you know, as a candidate, it was a sort of fitness question. It was about his record. It was about his possible entanglements going into the office. But now, for all we know, there are active flows of income in the last few years while he was president-elect. We wouldn't see anything since he was president. But there are active flows of income, or there are active debts, or all kinds of things that may be really germane to him as president of the United States.
Absolutely. And as you know, he's under a cloud because of these conflicts of interest and the fact that he has not divested himself from his businesses. He's under a cloud, and he should want to get out from under the cloud and show his taxes. But we think that he won't do it because, number one, he does have debt to people he does not want us to know he has debt to. And, you know, there's a lot of talk still about loans that he made from the Kremlin or from Russians during the 2008 problem that we had here in the United States. And so he's hiding something, and we can conclude that he does not care about his constituents, the people who voted for him, or anybody else, for example. There's another thing that some of us are following a lead on, and that is that he may have had money owed to him for services rendered, particularly in the entertainment and TV world, that did not go to his account that should be accounted for in his taxes, that it went into the foundation so that it is not being seen and he's not being taxed on it. So I'm following up on this lead, but there's a lot that we don't know about this president. And he, for example, does not get it because he simply said when he was bemoaning the fact that we were out there rallying and marching, he simply said in so many words, what's wrong with them? The elections are over. Why are they still doing this? As if we wanted to know during the elections, but we don't want to know now. We want to know now what taxes he's paid, what taxes he owes perhaps, how big is his debt, who is the debt to, can he be compromised because of places he has debt. And so there's a lot of unanswered questions. Right. But, you know, this administration, aside from hiding taxes, they don't want us to know the visitors log coming into the White House, the corporate heads and the lobbyists and his friends who are coming to get special favors. Why is it he's hiding that? And why is it he's given a waiver to all of these lobbyists who, in fact, are coming onto his payroll, coming onto the federal payroll, and they are representing the special interests that they have been working for. All of this should make the American public very upset and very concerned. We have a president in the White House who is giving waivers to lobbyists, who is not allowing us to see the visitors' logs, who's hiding his income tax. What does he expect us to do?
Right. Congresswoman Maxine Waters, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.